There are a lot of similarities that exist between what Jonathan Hickman did for the Avengers titles a few years ago, and what Scott Snyder has recently been doing with the Justice League book. Both of these are big team titles that should be setting the sales charts on fire and getting people to talk every single new issue. And yet both books, despite having some of the biggest selling characters on the teams, floundered for years and years and years under mediocrity or downright bad creators and storytelling that made them largely ignored, or in the worst cases, the laughingstocks of their respective companies. And in both instances, getting these big high-profile creators to give them a big boot up the ass has given them good results. For both Hickman and specifically Snyder in this case, their respective titles are doing much better than they have in a long time. Justice League is finally selling, people are finally talking about it in more or less good terms, both from the critics side and the fans, and they're interested to see what this title is going to do next. But that's not where the similarities end, there's quite a few more yet to list off. Both Hickman and Snyder have a grand sweeping storyline to tell, one that will cover the vast majority of their respective universe, that will delve into every possible side from cosmic to magic to street level. It's going to break the door wide open on them, it's going to introduce a whole bunch of new concepts that people will surely use for the next coming years and decades to come. It's going to have most of the characters get involved in it in some way, shape, or form. And they're both going to be drawn by Jim Cheung. Not all of it, obviously, but a lot of it. And they also have a big problem between them, which is lore overload. See, when dealing with universes like Marvel and DC that have gone on for decades and decades and decades, a lot of lore gets introduced. A lot of it gets ignored, but quite a few stuff sticks around and keeps being used over and over again. And as writers come and go, new concepts are introduced with powers. So, the Flash, who used to be a speedster, is now revealed to be a dude who taps into this force that exists in his universe called the Speed Force, and this lets him do a whole bunch of crazy shit, and as the years have gone by, the Speed Force has only gotten crazier and crazier. And that's just the Flash. If I started to round out all the lore that's been built up for other characters in just DC, I would probably make my whole brain explode. But you get what I mean. A concept is introduced, it's built up, and after a certain point, it probably should stop, otherwise it's going to get very ridiculous. And this is what happened with Jonathan Hickman on The Avengers. Hickman wanted to do a grand storyline about the creation of the Marvel Universe, who was responsible for it, why did they do it, and their eventual return. The problem was, all that stuff was already explained through the Celestials and the Eternals and probably other cosmic concepts that I'm not naming off right now. Hickman ignored all that stuff, and then he just created like 2 or 3 more factions that were responsible for the creation of the Marvel Universe. And while these things might look okay in isolation, you eventually realize, holy shit, now there's like 5 different groups of people who are responsible for this universe existing, apparently. And once you try to figure out who did what, you realize there's a whole lot of pointless clutter there. And this is what Snyder is also doing with the Justice League. He is going into every corner of the DC universe, he's gonna tie that all together, he's gonna introduce lots of new concepts for it, and while it might seem kind of cool at first, it gets very overwhelming and very pointless. The fact that there is yet another fucking Lantern Corps by itself should probably make at least some rational human being cringe. The emotional spectrum is already a dicey concept in and of itself, but it's okay up to a point. But now, thanks to Snyder, there's yet another core, there's like a counterpoint to the Speed Force now, and that's apparently gonna lead into the Flash having different forces as well. So there's gonna be like a force, I guess, for standing still, there's gonna be a force for other kinds of motion, I guess, and we don't need this. We really don't. Like I already explained, after a certain point, a concept should probably be left alone, otherwise it's just going to become a laughable parody of itself, and this is what Hickman did with the whole creation myth of the Marvel Universe, and this is what Snyder is doing with a lot of the Justice League stuff right now. But you might be thinking to yourself, okay, Ivan, you've detailed why this is a problem and why you personally find it very annoying, but surely it doesn't break the whole book. And I would say no. If the presentation of this stuff was a lot better, I would probably be able to stomach it more. And this is where Hickman was absolutely better than Snyder, because Hickman had some self-control. Hickman did not spend every single issue being part of a big event where we're breaking down the secrets of the DC universe every 2 fucking pages and devoting obnoxiously copious amounts of exposition to it. Hickman, for all of his faults as a writer, knew how to pace his shit out well. He knew he would be getting a lot of issues to plan all this stuff out and to present it to the audience, and he used that time well. Scott Snyder's not doing that. He's treating every single issue like it's part of a big event title. And while that's not necessarily a bad idea for a Justice League book, considering the fact that these are the heavy hitters of the DC universe, when you have every single fucking page devoted to this big bombast that's also coupled with horrendously delivered exposition that makes every fucking character sound the same, it becomes very tiresome very quickly. And this is an issue that has been with Scott Snyder for at least the past 2 or 3 years now. Snyder is someone who loves world building. He loves exposition, but usually when he was good, Snyder would relegate that stuff to narration boxes. He would leave it as part of the storyline, but he wouldn't bog down the pacing of everything and turn characters into just info dumps for him saying, look how cool I am for tying these things together. He didn't usually do that. In this book, he does it all the fucking time. Everyone has at least one instance of vomiting out exposition on top of exposition for who knows how long, making them all sound the same and interchangeable with one another. And that's a really big problem, because isn't the whole fucking appeal of titles like The Avengers and the Justice League that you get these people from different kinds of corners of the universe together and see them play off one another? Under Scott Snyder's pen, they're all just there to show you how cool and amazing Scott Snyder is for creating these cool, amazing new concepts that are just bogging everything the fuck down. Which is a shame, because when Snyder actually lets these characters have their own voice instead of just delivering horrendous exposition at you, they all sound fine. Superman doesn't sound like Batman. Batman doesn't sound like Wonder Woman. In fact, everyone sounds kind of how they should. And so when he lets these characters breathe on the rare instances that they happen, they actually sound pretty cool. But these moments are few and far between. Snyder is in it for the bombast. He's writing this like a big event title, where everyone is just a mouthpiece to showcase how cool he is for making this big, epic, cosmic storyline of grand proportions. And the worst part is, I don't even know necessarily how to fix this problem, because Scott Snyder has overloaded so much shit into his writing here, so many things that have to be covered. Having endless amounts of expository dialogue just being piled on top of you is the only real way to do it. It's either going to be that or copious amounts of narration boxes that are going to accomplish the same thing. Someone else might say, well, why didn't he just leave that for like a guidebook or something? But I'm personally of the opinion that if a story needs a guidebook to make sense, then the story fucked up somewhere. So it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't type situation either way. If you're in this to see just like the Justice League kind of interact and go on reasonable storylines, you're not going to get it here. This is Scott Snyder's show. He makes that abundantly obvious with every piece of vomiting exposition he can, and you just have to kind of take it or leave. I myself am leaving. This is just another instance of his where I don't like his writing anymore, and I feel like he's let his worst tendencies take over for him.